Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Dr. Janice Joerges here at Thrive Holistic Medicine, and I'm going to be talking to you today about keeping kids healthy. So we see a lot of children in our office, and their parents are bringing them in for a variety of reasons. It could be something like just a cold or a flu, or they're getting recurrent throat infections. And when they come in, one of the things that most parents ask is, okay, so I'm glad that we're done with this. Now, what do I do to keep these kids healthy? And so that's really why I want to talk to you about this today. There's a lot of things with naturopathic medicine, a lot of tools we have to help, but also there's just really some basics that I want to talk about with you. First, though, I love a reason to share pictures of my beautiful four children. And I did get all of their permission, by the way, to share their pictures, but they're really why I became a doctor. I always thought that I was going to be a teacher. And then I started having children, my oldest, James, and I really wanted medicine where I felt empowered as a mother to trust my intuition and where I felt supported instead of railroaded or talked over or dismissed. And that's when I found naturopathic medicine. And I fell in love from the very start, much like I did with my own children. Okay, so I'd like to talk first about toxic load. When we're talking about keeping the body healthy, we have to understand what's standing in the way of that health. And toxic load is the term that we use to explain all of the toxic exposures that our body has to deal with. Often we think, oh, a little bit in moderation, but a little bit of moderation results in this total load, and it can be a lot for our bodies to handle. So we get exposed to these toxins through the environment, through food that we're eating, things that we're drinking, through water, through personal care products, so like our shampoos, our conditioners, lotions, and household products. So the things that we're using to clean or that we might be using to make our house smell nice or to keep our clothes from not sticking together. And here, if you have been in our office, you know we talk about this with every new patient. This is our naturopathic therapeutic order. And this explains the levels that we work at when we're working with our patients. So the first one says establish the foundation for optimum health. Really, we are all designed already to be healthy. All we have to do is to create those conditions for health. So to remove those obstacles or barriers. And as I often tell my patients, and the kids get it really well, I say, these are the choices that we're making every day. And they put us on the road to health and healing or to disease and dysfunction. So these are what we're eating. This is what we're drinking. This is our sleep. This is our exercise. This is our fresh air and sunshine. This is understanding stress that we're dealing with and how to manage it successfully. So we talk a lot about the foundation for health. So nutrition, one of the questions I get a lot from kids is why can't they just eat what they want to eat or what tastes good? And so I like to break down the macronutrients for them. So this is our carbohydrates. Carbohydrates kind of have a bad rap right now. They're big in like breads and pastas, but also there are fruits, there are vegetables. These are carbohydrates. Also, fats. Every one of our cells has a lipid bilayer to it, and lipid is the same as fat. So we do need to be consuming really healthy fats in our diet. And then protein, there are essential amino acids. There's 9 of them. And what that means is that we have to eat those amino acids because our body can't make them. So when I first break down those macronutrients, then we like to talk about, well, the carbohydrates from our fruits and vegetables are great, but what really makes those carbohydrates better is that they also contain those micronutrients. So that's our fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, and our water soluble vitamins. So you see that whole list of B vitamins there. and also vitamin C. These are our water-soluble vitamins. So that means we need to be getting those every day. They're not storing up and accumulating in our bodies the way that the fat-soluble are. And then also we want to look at those minerals. Now, one of the things that I explain to patients is we need to be taking a multivitamin. And the reason why is because we're no longer able to get all of our mineral needs from the food that we're eating. The soil is just depleted. There are some organic farmers, especially if you're at a smaller farmers market, who understand crop rotation and who are doing this. But if we're growing the same crop in the same plot of land and we're not remineralizing that soil, there's just not enough minerals for those fruits and vegetables to pull out. So the minerals that we need are listed here. And this is where I typically start. I explain these, and then I talk about some other things with food. So something we need to keep in mind is that food, especially baby foods, get recalled. So it's a good idea to check periodically to make sure, because first of all, you might not be notified. Some of the stores are doing a really good job of notifying. But I just want to put that on your radar to be aware of recalled foods. Typically, it's packaged foods. Also, there are heavy metals in food. Rice, in particular, has a high amount of arsenic. So when you're making rice for your family, make sure that you're rinsing it very well to pull that arsenic out. And then if you're looking at alternatives, maybe you're gluten-free, don't choose rice as an alternative all the time, because then you're increasing the amount of arsenic that you're getting. There's also a lot of additives that are allowed in our foods. They're often used as preservatives, TBHQ, BHT, BHA. These are common additives even in children's cereal. So knowing what to look for, I highly recommend. We can talk about that in a visit in depth if that's something that you really want to dig into. But typically, I recommend looking at European standards for foods. And if you're getting that USDA organic, those are not allowed in there. So I often, when people are asking about how much organic I purchase, I don't have time to be looking up everything. And so I go with kind of the easy option of just getting the organic. And then I know too that I'm supporting organic farmers and I'm voting with my dollars. Um, so I just mentioned about the additives too. So that's something not just in the foods that we're bringing into our house, but also in the foods that we're eating out. So restaurant foods, fast foods, children's lunches. So if you're thinking again about what I mentioned before about moderation, think about that total load, right? Maybe there's just a little bit in breakfast. Maybe there's just a little bit in the school lunch. And by the end of the day, now your child has been exposed to a lot. So keep that in mind. Try to really do those organic, fresh fruits and vegetables. Often we lump the fruits with the vegetables, but I really do recommend trying to get 5 servings of just vegetables and then supplementing with fruit. The reason why is fruit's delicious. It's very sweet though, and we don't want to change children's palates to where now they start preferring sweets over vegetables. And we do have a free download on our website with some easy snack options for kids, maybe some things that you haven't considered. So we really are, we want to support you and make this easier because it's hard enough being a parent, let alone trying to keep our kids healthy. So hydration. I love this little infographic, this little picture right here, because it talks so much about why water is important. One of the first signs of dehydration is brain fog and fatigue. So what often happens to adults is we're waking up, we're rushing through our day, we're going, and then we feel like we're going to drop. We're so tired. So then we grab some caffeine, right? Because we want something to stimulate us, when really what our body wanted was water. So I recommend when you get up, drink water right away, hydrate. turn on those thirst receptors. So that way throughout the day, you know for sure when you're feeling thirsty and that that signal isn't getting distorted and coming in as hunger. So we need about half of our body weight in ounces of water. There was a, or there is a common misconception that 8 cups of water a day is enough. And my question always is for who? For someone who's 6 feet 4 inches tall, or for someone who is 6 years old. And so that's why we like to individualize it. And we say, okay, for your body, for all of these functions to take place, this is how much water you should be aiming for. And then also when we're thinking about that water intake, sodas and caffeinated drinks actually count against our water intake. Coffee is a diuretic. So it's pulling water out of your body as opposed to allowing that water to absorb. So when you're having things like that, you definitely want to make sure that you're taking an ounce for ounce to replenish your body's water. Also, I want to just mention that dark sodas contain phosphoric acid. And when we're putting acid into our bodies work to neutralize it. And the way the body neutralizes the phosphoric acid is by pulling calcium. And our largest stores of calcium are in our bones. So now the body starts pulling calcium from our bones. We know as women, we're at a higher risk after menopause to have osteopenia and osteoporosis. So I really encourage you, if your children are going to drink soda, steer them away from those dark sodas. And they do have at the store, more natural ones with real sugar as opposed to high fructose corn syrup. If your family is primarily drinking water, which I highly recommend, then something like juice or a sparkling water might be a treat or a special drink, as opposed to going straight to a soda. But I do want to caution you that in those cans, in the soda cans, even in the sparkling water cans, there is BPA. Bisphenol A is a endocrine disruptor, and your endocrine system is all of your hormones in your body. And so BPA is an endocrine disruptor. And it's even been found in breast milk. It's pervasive. It's everywhere in our environment. So limiting your exposure to that through the cans, I'm I am blanking on the name of it right now, but there is a glass bubbly water that my family really likes. Maybe it has the word mountain in it. If my kids weren't at school, they would be able to tell me the name of it, because that's a nice treat drink that my family likes to enjoy, and then we don't have to worry about the BPA. Sleep can be a battle with some children. They just want to go, go, go. And if you miss that sleep window, it can be harder to get them to go to sleep because now they've got some adrenaline going. Their cortisol wasn't able to drop the way that it wanted to. But sleep is so important. I do have a little graphic here of how much sleep. I will tell you, my newly turned 16-year-old argues with me about the 8 to 10 hours of sleep, but knowledge is power. And so I just keep reminding him of the importance of sleep. And so when we are sleep deprived, this lowers our immune system. When we're sleep deprived, we're more likely to get sick. So it's very important to prioritize that sleep, especially if people in your family are ill, if you're doing traveling, if you're going to be around large groups. Also, while we're sleeping, this is the time where the brain is able to clear and detoxify some of the waste materials that have built up. And there's a ton of research about sleep now, which I love because I love to sleep. And what we're finding actually is that there's reorganization of the connections between nerves in the brain that happens while we sleep. If your child has a big project and they want to pull an all-nighter or something like this to get it all done, what I highly recommend is study and then sleep and explain to them that while they are sleeping, that information is going to synthesize because that's how their brain repairs itself. And that's one of the ways that we convert short-term memories to long-term memories. So, sleep more. We talk about air pollution quite a bit because we are exposed to so many toxins. One of our primary toxic burdens is the quality of air that we're breathing. Now, we can't do a lot for outdoor air pollution other than avoiding areas that are heavily congested, especially idling cars. Idling cars produce a lot of exhaust, which is terrible to breathe in. So if you're choosing a park to play at or a nature preserve, try to choose one that's away from the expressway, especially during rush hour, which kind of feels like all the time. Um, but some of the things that we can do for that indoor air pollution is having house plants in your house. In fact, you can see the little orchid that my kids got me for Mother's Day in the background here. But so one house plant per 100 square feet of indoor space. It's been tested and verified, and they say, yep, like this is the minimum that you want. And I think they went into a little more detail of like the pot size should be 6 inches, right? Because there's a difference between the small plants and larger plants. But what I would encourage you to do now, figure out how many square feet your home is, and then get that number of plants. So if you have 1,000 square foot home, you want at least 10 plants. Also, I have a friend from Germany who years ago introduced me to the concept of air exchange. And since then, I love it. Even during the winter, we do this. We open our windows and we allow fresh air to come in for about 5 minutes per day. Now, if you are living in an area with a lot of exhaust and chemical pollutants, then I would recommend still do this, right? We still want to change out that air, but have air purifiers in your home. And for anyone whose child seems to have allergies or asthma, I highly recommend having an air purifier. We're just pulling all of those toxins out of the air, making it easier to breathe, reducing that toxic load. If you're using an exhaust fan when you're cooking or showering, which I always recommend to do, make sure that you have a window open because when you're using that exhaust, you are pulling air out of your house. But where is the new air coming from, right? As you pull air out, new air is taking up that space. And it could be from a musty basement or from a closet where a bunch of chemicals are. We really can't control that. So the best thing to do is to open a window. That way you're pulling air in from outside, and now the exhaust is pushing out the air from cooking or from showering. We also want to make sure that we're avoiding artificial fragrances in the home. Candles, that soot that they have gets into the air, and then we breathe that in. Any sort of air fresheners, like the plug-ins, there are some exceptions, obviously, to that. So we definitely want to stay away from those artificial fragrances, but some people like essential oils like that. There are some really nice essential oils. Always check to make sure that they are safe for your age of children in your home and for pets. Um, for air fresheners, you can use baking soda on your carpet or rug and just sprinkle some of that in, let it sit for a little bit, vacuum it up, and that'll pull any any odors out of that without having to use an artificial fragrance. Fabric softener sheets, there are fabric softener sheets that don't contain any fragrance to them. So they still cut down on that static cling, but they're not putting any pollutants into the air. And then I just have these common indoor air pollutants here. VOCs are often in furniture and paint. So like you can get great colors. This one behind me is a VOC free paint. And when you're getting new furniture or mattresses, things like that, if possible, I always recommend airing them out outside. Those VOCs will actually still stick around after after you lose the ability to detect them through smell. So even though they don't smell anymore, they could still be releasing VOCs. So at a minimum, keeping it outside. Also, I love to thrift, to get things secondhand. That way I don't have to worry about off-gassing. So you might consider something like that as well, just to cut down on some of that indoor air pollution. Outdoor safety. It's beautiful outside now, and I don't know about your family, but mine has been spending a lot of time outdoors. And some of the parents who come and see me are very concerned about ticks. Ticks have been getting worse. We're just noticing them a lot more. And who knows if people are just paying attention more than they have in the past, but a lot of families have been pulling ticks off of their children. So what can we do to prevent ticks? The first thing is long pants, long sleeve shirt. And you want to tuck the shirt into the pants and then tuck the pants actually into the socks. There's a lot of lightweight linens. Try to wear lighter colors. So if you do have a tick crawling on you, you'll be able to see it. There's also a common misconception that ticks drop um, down from trees, and that's not true. They're on the ground and they climb up. Always do a tick check after you're outside. So you can often find them behind the ears, at the hairline, in the underarms, but it's really important. If you want to be super fun after you're out, you can do a little sprinkler in the yard and great, or, get ready for a fun splish splash tub and do just a quick tick check then. I always recommend showering or bathing afterward. That tick has to be attached for 24 hours before it can transmit any disease. So that gives you some time to find the ticks. And one thing that I started doing is I just always assume that there is a tick. So I'm very thorough with checking all of my kids and making sure, even on myself, that we don't have any ticks. Oil of lemon eucalyptus has been tested to be just as effective as DEET in short periods of time. I want to add that, short periods of time. So you want to be, if you're out for longer than 2 hours, you want to be reapplying it. You cannot use it for children under 3 years of age, though. For infants and young children, I recommend having them up in a baby carrier on your back, still pants tucked into socks, still long shirt tucked into pants. But this way, by keeping them off of the ground, you're limiting their risk of picking up a tick as they're going through brush and all of the leaves. So you're going to do that tick check when you come home, shower. If you do find a tick, there are a lot of great ways to remove a tick. There are little tick keys that they're called, and you just put that on and twist and the tick comes off. You can use tweezers. You don't want to use like fire or alcohol or something like this, because then the tick is going to regurgitate all of the contents of its stomach back into the body, and that increases the risk of transmission. So we don't want to do that. But if you're pulling that tick out, pull as close to the head or the mouth parts as possible. That way you can pull the whole tick out. If you have a tick bite or your child, alert your health professional. I have patients who come and tell me we use homeopathic ledum here at the office as one of the things that we do after a tick bite. But please reach out. If I'm not your doctor, I'm happy to be. But if you have someone else that you're seeing, please reach out to them, because we want to take the tick bite seriously. And you can actually send your tick out for testing if you can save it, to make sure that it's not carrying Lyme's disease. I wanted to put a little caution on here too. There are a lot of recipes for make your own tick spray. And in general, I love do-it-yourself things. I think it's very empowering. I think when we take information and we synthesize it and we're using it, then we have ownership over that. It feels really good. Except sometimes things don't come with the warnings that they should. So citronella oil is not safe for children under 6 months. And thyme was proven to be effective against ticks too, but you can't use that on children under 2 years of age. I do sometimes too get questions about DEET. So DEET is tricky because there's a lot of research that says that if you're using it at a lower concentration, it's less risky than getting a tick bite, right? So we have to weigh risk and benefit. Um, there's also picaridin that's been used in Europe instead of DEET. That is also an insecticide. So some people will spray the picaridin onto a baby carrier, the outside of it, when they're wearing their children out in the forest or on nature hikes, things like that. So that way it's providing some protection, but it's not actually on the child. So definitely, I recommend for your family weighing those risks and benefits, but always, no matter what you decide, do those tick checks. This is your time to really prevent transmission from happening. Sun protection is another question I get quite a bit from families. I included this chart here because these in 2019, the FDA, which if you know the FDA, they are not particularly natural minded. And so even they were saying that these chemical additives that work as sunscreens are not safe, but titanium dioxide and zinc oxide are. Now, with these, you want to get non-nano. What that means is that the particle is large, so it's sitting mostly on top of the skin, absorbing just a little bit. If you get the nano, it absorbs very well, and we don't want that much zinc or titanium dioxide in our bodies. Also, now there are a lot of options for clothing and hats that have SPF protection built into them. This is great because then you have less sunscreen to apply. And then you don't have to worry about did you miss a spot or making sure that you're applying every 2 hours, especially if you're going to be in water. Wearing a long sleeve rash guard, they're called, with SPF. Is a wonderful option because when you're in the water, that sunscreen washes off more quickly. So you want to make sure that you're constantly applying it. If you're in the water, read your individual sunscreen tube to see what the duration of time is, and please consider that SPF protecting clothing. Also, we know that when the sun around noon, so 11 to 2 p.m., that's when those UV rays are the most intense and the most harmful. So staying out of the sun during those times, either being in shade or in the house, and then timing either for early morning walk or time at the park or hike or later in the afternoon, but avoiding that time when the UV rays are their most intense also reduces your risk of skin cancer and sunburns. Disinfecting. Okay, over on the side here, I have EWG. So the Environmental Working Group is a third-party organization that tests products to see how safe they are. And in general, I love EWG. With some things, I don't tend to love them. And EWG, just as a side note, is a big supporter of DEET. They say they've done the research and that DEET is okay to use. So that's why I say some of their things I 100% agree with, and then others not so much. But you can look at ewg.org, and you can, they also have an app for your phone. So you can pull that up. I think it's called Think Dirty. And then you can scan or type in all of the products that you're using in your home. And it will tell you, are these endocrine disruptors? Are these indoor air pollutants? What's the toxic profile of the ingredients in this? I love it. Also, there are EWG verified products, and those are great because you know that it's not containing a lot of these harmful chemicals. So when we're washing our hands, we want to make sure that we're using a gentle soap and water. Dr. Bronner's is a Castile soap that is wonderful to use, but even if you aren't doing something like that, you want to make sure that you're avoiding triclosan SLS, which is sodium lauryl sulfate, that is a known skin irritant. And any fragrances. Fragrances often contain phthalates. Phthalates are terrible. They are cancer causing, they damage the lungs, they can damage the brain. They're neurotoxins, so avoid those synthetic fragrances. Also, a lot of conventional hand sanitizers are mostly alcohol, or sometimes they put additives in them that can be really drying and irritating. So I want you to remember that a sore is a door. So if your child's hand is chapped, now their protective barrier, their skin is compromised. So they're more likely to get an infection. So we don't want, as much as we can, we want to just wash with soap and water and making sure that we're taking our time with doing that. Washing first and then rinsing, not washing under the running water. So we really allow that soap to get into all of the areas before we're rinsing it off. And making, if we can't do that, there are some, actually at ewg.org, they have a list of hand sanitizers that have a lower amount of alcohol and that don't have those irritating additives in there. Also with your produce, because I want you all to be eating lots of vegetables and some fruits, but definitely fruits and vegetables. You can wash them 1 part vinegar to 4 parts water. So you can even wash out your sink, put a stopper in, fill it up with the water, add the vinegar, and let your apples, let your oranges just soak in there. And then if you get a little produce brush, those are great for things like potatoes, sweet potatoes. Um, my kids love to scrub the kiwis. So lots of things that you can use those fun little brushes for. Plus, that's great for getting younger, like toddler age kids into the kitchen. So you would soak it, rinse it, then move it out of that now contaminated water and let them use the scrub brush like that. We talk a lot about how supplements means in addition to. So supplement isn't instead of. We aren't doing these supplements instead of making sure that we're mindful with what we're eating and limiting our exposure to toxins in our home and making sure that we're drinking enough water. We're doing all of those things. And then additionally, we're using supplements. Immunoberry here on the screen is one of my favorite immune supports. My whole family takes it. We use it preventatively before travel or big events. My kids have their family prom tonight, so we've all taken our Immunoberry today since we're going to be around more people. Also vitamin C. So for vitamin C, to get the correct dosage, you want to take 50 milligrams and times it by your child's age in years. So if you have a 3-year-old, they're going to take a maximum of 150 milligrams per day. Also, probiotics are wonderful. There are more bacteria in our body than cells. And as time goes on and more research is done, we're learning just how important these probiotics are. So I love the Therabiotic Kids by Claire Labs. It's a chewable. Um, it has just a tiny bit of xylitol, which gives it a pleasant taste for kids. But it's got our lactobacilli and our bifidobacteria in there, which we love, and also the multivitamins, Super Newts by Orthomolecular. That's a chewable vitamin. As I mentioned at the beginning, we just are not getting those micronutrients like we used to from our foods. And so taking that multivitamin also helps to support your child's immune system. And by the way, moms and dads, you should all be taking a quality multivitamin too. Because we often talk about that oxygen mask, right? Like you have to put your mask on before someone else's. So it's great if you have these kids with stellar immune systems, and not so great if you're feeling run down all the time. A lot of times when I'm working with kids, I'm also working with their parents, right? Because we want a healthy family. So you can contact us. You can call or text our office, and I have the number up here. And as I mentioned, we do see kids all the time. So if you're struggling with something with your child, or you just want more individualized recommendations for your family, and the exposures that you're having, please feel free to contact us, and we can set up a free 15-minute discovery call, kind of talk, see if we're a good fit for each other, and then if we are, we'll go on from there. Thank you all so much for joining.